Hello, and welcome to another insightful episode of the series of the digital adoption show that we call DAP Upskill. In this podcast series, we bring you expert interviews, insightful case studies, and thought provoking discussions with industry leaders and upskilling specialists. Today, we will delve deep into the technology adoption life cycle and how user centricity helps minimize this life cycle for the end users. We will talk to the people who build these user-centric adoption platforms and ensure that it is a smooth process for all end users. My first guest on this episode is Achyut Krishna. Achyut is the Senior Director of Engineering at Whatfix. He oversees the engineering and technology charters for the Digital Adoption Platform or DAP product line at Whatfix. Based in India, he drives the engineering vision and strategy across the DAP team with a focus on quality and efficiency. Welcome to the podcast, Achyut. It's so good to have you here. I'm sure our listeners will gain a lot of your thoughts, which are backed by more than 15 years of experience in the field. That's just amazing. So, we discuss digital adoption here on this podcast. So, the first question I want to ask you is you work in the development team, right? So, what all softwares has your
That's right.
department adopted to, and how does this technology adoption ease your work? Basically, you've adopted to DAP, right? So, how does it help you, and how does your department ensure user and customer satisfaction? Because you are the people building the platform, right?
Anjit. Yeah, yeah. Thanks for having me on this podcast. This is a new experience, so quite excited to do this with you on this podcast.
Thank you.
So I'll speak from an engineering context, right? How we use DAP or how it helps us build what we are building. Right?
Yep.
If you look at an engineer or an engineering team, the standard set of softwares that we use are mostly aligned with the software development lifecycle, right? This would include software or tools for change management like Jira, software code for source code management like Bitbucket, test case management, and so on and so forth, which typically
Yeah.
align with the function, the job function that we're doing. Now, apart from all of that, which is most quintessential, is development operations tools like Jenkins and things like that. And finally, it is also with respect to when you ship the software, how do you ship the software, and how do you ensure that whatever you're shipping to customers is functioning correctly? So, from a
Okay.
monitoring and observability platform, also we use tools, right? But how does this all tie in for us, right? You asked how does DAP help you and your department, and how does it ensure customer satisfaction?
Yes.
Traditional functional lines of responsibility in the engineering team are constantly blurring, right? There were very fixed responsibilities in the traditional sense of engineering, right? Developers would only develop. There would be somebody else who would figure out how to take what is developed and ship it to the customer. And there was another team that was doing post-production support, things like that, right? So, but now engineers are not expected to just stick to one role and just say, I will just code. But now they're also required to handle, okay, once I do this code, how do I ship this to the customer? Once it's shipped to the customer, how is the customer using it, and how can I support the customer post-production, right? So as a result of this paradigm shift, what is happening is they are now required to use more than their standard set of softwares and tools that they would normally combine. And that plays an important role in their ability to learn all of these additional tools and effectively operate on these multiple tools that are used. Finally, an engineering team that delivers a product with good quality and good reliability will eventually drive customer satisfaction. If I can't do that internally, what I'm shipping to the customer is going to be a consequence of that, right? So that does help us do our job better, and by extension of doing our job better, customers are benefited by that.
All right. Also, we are discussing digital adoption, right? It's a relatively new concept for a lot of people out there because the general public who does not work in this field is sort of not very informative about what it is. So it would also help our listeners if you could, tell them a little bit about your thoughts on DAP, and also how do you make sure that DAP is user centric? Like, what are the things that the engineering department does to make sure that anyone and everyone who's facing DAP in their day-to-day life is okay adjusting to it? Because it's a new thing for them also. So how do you make sure that happens?
Right. So I look at it from the context of context itself, right? Each of us have now grown in our functional roles to do a lot more functionally, to do a lot more, but we need to be enabled to do that much more, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I'll try to say that from an engineering aspect of every engineer who is using all of these tools that we spoke about in the prior question. they don't need to know everything end to end in order to
Yeah.
do their function. They need to know only what they need to know, right? It's
Exactly.
a
Yeah.
very crude way of saying it, but it's actually the right thing to say, right? You only need to understand what enables you to do your job more effectively or your function more effectively, right? This is where user centricity comes into play, right? So the DAP platform giving you a user centric approach and giving you something that is only of context as far as you are concerned is what is becoming invaluable as far as the DAP platforms, right? So when we try to design something or when we try to build on Whatfix, when we ship it to a customer, that is part of the design ethos, right? How do you first enable the customer, make it user-centric for their users, right? If you can target content to a specific function or a specific role, that is where the maximum impact comes from. Like I'll take an example of something that is happening internally in the engineering team for you. So we are onboarding a new platform or a new tool for observability. So there is an existing one, and we are replacing it with a new one, right? And this is to be done across all the engineering members across all the teams, right? We're going to open this up to everybody in the engineering team. Now there is a natural learning curve here because this is something new, and what they were used to that is existing in the system or prior, they have to now rethink a little bit and then apply whatever their use cases were there on that tool into the new one.
Yeah.
So our thought process is, can you use DAP in order to bridge this gap? So can I figure out what is the most used functional scopes in the existing application? Can I translate that using Whatfix itself and then integrate the new application with Whatfix, right? So if I can do that effectively, then my engineers don't skip a beat at all. They can be as productive as they are currently, even though a new system has come into play, but it gives them the same ability to do so, which is then, it is supported by the DAP. Right?
Yeah, I think
so
ways like this
a lot
are
of hard work,
very important. Yeah, because that shift
Agreed.
that one needs to make in their everyday
Correct.
work life, adapting to a new
Correct.
platform,
And an
adapting to a new
observability
software.
platform is exactly, it's a very complex platform. And we should not expect everybody to understand every aspect of it. There's no need to. Right? If I'm building a specific feature in Whatfix and I'm shipping to customer, I only need to know how to observe that particular feature. It's okay. I don't need to understand the details that go behind, 3-4 levels of it. That's not required of me at this point.
All right. So we've discussed DAP quite a lot. Now, my next question to you would be, how do you make sure that you and your team, more or less, makes the most out of DAP and leverage it to benefit you and your users? I think you just answered that a little bit, but just a deeper insight.
Yeah, makes sense, right? See, on a personal front, multiple things, right? Apart from the engineering tools, we are also exposed to HRMS like SuccessFactors.
Yes.
Many of these don't naturally come to an engineering member, right? We are most comfortable with code and code related applications, maybe.
Yes.
But something out of the ordinary is something that we would need to think or apply a little bit more thought process to. So for an engineering team, if you look at effectiveness, right, it's measured by developer productivity. And it's not a simple measure by any means, right? It's an easy word to throw out there, but it's a little bit more complicated. So feedback is an essential part of this activity. So you take Whatfix, for example. We are in Whatfix. Let's talk about Whatfix. Whatfix has so many features that can assist with this task: surveys, feedbacks, user goals, the ability to do user tracking, and so many things that the platform itself provides, right? So I can measure the effectiveness of my team either directly or indirectly using DAP by using all of these features that the platform gives to me. Eventually, an engineer who's independent and is the most successful outcome of any transition that I can get, internally that is out here, right? So I look at it from that sense, right? How do I make sure I'm making the most out of DAP? Not so clear in terms of an answer, but I think I can use DAP to figure out how effective my engineers are at this point of time.
Exactly.
So that will give me at least an indirect measure of the effectiveness.
Okay. Also, I think you can track what all features of the DAP platform that you've adopted to are most comfortable for your users, for your team members, basically. So you can build on that.
That is right. That's absolutely
yes.
correct.
Yes. Okay. So just the last few words, anything that you have to say about DAP and making it more user-centric. What all do you think has helped you make it user-centric? What all things should one keep in mind while trying to adapt to DAP?
So I've been here 7 years, okay? And a little bit of history will help me answer this question.
Okay.
And I hope I do a good job of it. So when we started off, initially. It was from the prism of a guided learning solution. Whatfix was a guided learning platform. User centricity was not a very critical thought process at that point.
Yeah.
Right? We were in that space where we said, okay, people use applications or enterprise applications and they're going to struggle with it. And Whatfix is going to try to bridge that gap for you without having users to move out of your application to get help. Right? But then slowly it started evolving. We decided, or rather, we realized that you can do much more with a platform like Whatfix if you put the user front and center. So then it started getting more and more interesting, right? Contextualization for the user based on who the user is, what their function is,
Exactly.
perhaps which department they are from. Then came the other part, ability to identify who a particular user is, right? Uniquely, can you identify that user? Then based on that identification, what can you do for that user in terms of, maybe a targeted pop-up can be given for that particular user.
Exactly.
Right. So on and so forth. It kept moving within the natural progression of user centricity. And lastly, there is asynchronous abilities to integrate with customers' platforms to get user information and ingest that information in Whatfix and then use it to modify Whatfix's behavior with respect to those users. So everything that we have done after those initial stages has always been with the user in mind. Right. So I think user centricity also opens up many possibilities in the future also. If you look at labs, many of the products that are coming out of labs, comments, it's very user centric. / or comments, Whatfix comments that we have is very user centric. There are AI initiatives that are being released. One of them is already come with a product, but we are thinking of a few more that are there. Those also are very user centric, right? You're giving the user an ability to prompt and get information from Whatfix itself using those abilities. So I think now it's an established part, user centricity of our entire thought process and philosophy.
Exactly. So in the last episode, we had Navras from the sales team, and he told us the entire process of the profile of the user that DAP uses to give certain prompts. He told us that when he became a manager, suddenly his prompts were very different. When he was not a manager, his prompts were entirely different. So I think that is amazing. That gives the user some confidence that, okay, even if I don't have a higher person above me to guide me through this process, there is this software which will anyways help me.
Right.
I don't need to depend on anyone else to bridge this gap.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely correct.
That's amazing. So kudos to your team for building something that amazing.
It's a big team. It's a capable team. I think they worked hard to do what they do, and they definitely have delivered a good product to Whatfix's customers.
All right. Thank you so much, Achyut, for being a part of our show. And I'm sure everyone who watches this will learn so much more than they already know. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alia. Thank you. It's, like I said, first experience, but awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So my next guest on today's podcast is Anurag Hota. He leads the charge in product management at Whatfix. So it took us a long time to get you here. Anurag, can you tell us a little bit about yourself first?
Yeah, hi, Arya. I'm excited to be on this podcast. And just a brief about me, I am a product manager here at Whatfix. I've been in this field for close to 8 years now. And especially super excited about the DAP space. I believe we will be talking a bit about that. And what really drives me or what really excites me is identifying users' pain points, talking to our customers, figuring out what exactly is causing a friction with their uses of the product, and trying to figure out how our product can help them, solve their use cases. That's something that is really insightful or exciting for me.
Amazing. Very excited to have you here, Anurag, and let's get started. So in this episode, we are discussing about the user centricity of DAP. Okay. And as a builder of the platform, as you guys really take in charge of how to make it user-centric, my first question to you would be, what all softwares has your department adopted to, and how does this technology adoption ease your work? Basically, are you using DAP? And if yes, how is it helping you?
Yeah, so there's a lot of questions. Let's see if I am able to answer those. But technology is definitely part of everyone's life nowadays, be it mobile phones or software application that we are using.
Yeah.
Here, product in Whatfix, we do use a lot of applications to, improve our productivity, work collaboratively with a lot of the other team members as well. So some of the tools are fairly regular tools that I'm sure all of the industry will be using. For example, we do use Jira for collaborating with our developers. or we
Yeah.
use Figma to collaborate with our designers. There are a lot of refinements going on. But one tool in particular that has helped us a lot in the product team here is Product Board. We do use it to collect all kind of feedbacks that we receive, paid from our customers, paid from our sales team, our market research team. We collect all of them, and this tool is super easy to use. It sorts of acts as a funnel. It captures all the insights, and then individual PM go through it, figure out what are the themes emerging, and then we try to, sort of work with the design team to see whether this is a problem statement actually worth solving the day to the customer, the regular development cycle follows, right? And this is sort of a single tool that gives visibility to the entire organization as well, because we charter our roadmap, our reasoning why we are doing something, the prioritization, everything happens on this single tool. So yeah, it has really helped us a lot, and it has really improved the productivity of the product team.
Okay, all right, all right. Amazing. Okay, so we are discussing digital adoption, right? A lot of people are not very aware about the idea of digital adoption. And one thing which we are focusing on in this podcast is the technology adoption life cycle, okay, which is basically if someone is introduced to a new technology, how long it takes for them to adapt to the entire thing and to be very comfortable with that environment. Okay, so as a product person, how do you make sure that DAP is user-centric to minimize this life cycle for the end user?
Yeah, so let me answer it in one way. As you mentioned, that TAP is fairly a new category, that definitely, but I have a different take on this in the sense that if you see the crux of digital adoption or what we are actually trying to say, that has been in literature for quite some time. Like I'm sure listeners of this podcast, if they are from the product team or any other team, would have heard of this famous book by West Bush. It's called Product-Led Growth. It was really a sensation when it was launched. I also read it. And also it was mentioned, right? Like how do you ensure that the product that you are selling, the product can be for any application, like any use case, right? Can be for insurance, can be for customer success, any department, right? How do you ensure that the people who are supposed to use it in the right way, right? And it is always the responsibility of the product manager that, hey, you know what, I should inform the user they have to do this, or I should highlight something in the application, asking the user, this is where you have to click and not anywhere else, at least in the first onboarding phase, right? And even trainers, product trainers who are responsible typically in enterprise companies to ensure all their 1,000, 2,000 employees are trained on a particular workflow are very particular that, okay, how do I ensure that in the application that these people are using, I define a guided path or I define a particular workflow that is the only thing that you should do when you are actually onboarded, right? So the concept has always there. I would say DAP as a tool has actually facilitated it in the sense that we have brought out a product which solves a problem statement that was always there. And we made it easier for our personas, which are typically product trainers or documentation team members, or basically product managers, that, hey, you know what? Now you have a tool where without writing any single line of code, you can define pretty much any journey that you want your users to take. It can be a simple journey, which has 10 steps. It can be a complex journey, which has multiple branches and all. Or it can be as simple as a simple in-app product messaging that, hey, hi, hello, Anurag, you have logged into the product for the first time. Would you like to do this or that? So that is something that Whatfix has actually brought to the market, and that has really stick with the customers who are actually using it for so many enterprise applications today.
Okay, that's very insightful. Thanks, Anurag. Also, one more thing that I wanted to know is how are you an end user of DAP? When you are building these platforms for the end user, basically when you are building DAP, how is DAP helping you do that? How is it increasing your productivity, efficiency, your team members' efficiency? How is DAP helping you build the platform?
That's an interesting question for PM who is actually building this thing. I'll definitely try to answer that in the best way possible.
Tricky one.
The best thing is, as I mentioned in the start, we at this company, Whatfix, we ourselves use a lot of tools, maybe more than 20 plus different applications across different teams. So I give example of what products the product team uses. Similarly, you will have examples from customer success team, marketing team, customer advocacy team.
Yes.
Every team have their own needs and they have their own applications, right? And what we have done is, because our tool is used for helping people adopt the application, any feature, any capability that we launch in Whatfix, we do dog fooding a lot. That what that means is, if you come to Whatfix today and you are part of any different team, any of the team that I have mentioned, any application that you would use will have Whatfix already on top of that, right? So how does
Yeah.
that help? That does it in two ways. Like, of course, we reduce our own internal support cost because we don't have to spend time paying this new employee that these are the things that you need to learn about this application. And it also gives us, immediate feedback from our internal team members because they are probably the nearest one. From product team, for a design team, it's very important. Okay, I release something, I go to them and tell, hey, you used it. How did you feel about it? What was missing there, right? To give an example, let's say there are many instances that I use DAP to automate many of my tasks or improve my efficiency. So I do manage a team of 3 or 4 members. And recently we had a case where one of my employee wanted that he wants to move out to, let's say, our Wuhan office, right? Now I do know that HR has a policy of relocation, but I have to figure out where it was, right? I can search for emails or
Yeah.
probably Google Drive. But I know that because Whatfix is already there, and this is exactly why the use cases are developed. I was in Gmail when I get that request. In Gmail, we have also integrated Whatfix. So I just did a quick search. What is the relocation policy? And there it was. I got a very quick summary assisted by AI that is the relocation policy. Of course,
Yeah.
that helped my purpose, but if I wanted more information, be it the policy in details, I could have clicked it and read through the entire document. So pretty much I like, at least for me, I probably save 10 or 15 minutes of my time just to using Whatfix. And
Yeah.
till now we try to integrate a lot of workflows that managers use or employees use and see what are the things that can be automated for them, maybe leave approvals or work from home approvals. All of these things you really need people to open a new tab, see who have applied, and then do an approval, right? Why can't you automate that? Things like that we have automated, and we have seen significant, reduction in time for people when they were doing this without Whatfix, right? So
Yeah.
that's some consensus how we use. Of course, with those users pattern and all, and talking to team members, you figure out, okay, people really want, hey, all this is cool. Can I favorite some of my tasks here, or can I add some of my tasks in my
Yeah.
sort of a check? Can I create it on the fly? So those are the inputs you look for as a PM, because once you see that, okay, this may be a pain point that users of our customers may also be facing, and then we probably build the next set of capabilities from there on.
All right, all right. Amazing. That's super amazing. Now, I just want to know one thing, and that would be, how would you tell a user to get the most out of that? Or maybe how are you doing it? But more importantly, what would you say to someone who's new to the concept, but also wants to grab the most he can out of it?
Yeah. So again, very apt question given the industry we are in, because the way we look at it is, or at least in my opinion, is every industry actually evolves, or every category of product actually evolves, right? So you had
Yeah.
CRM solutions. If you look what they were doing 10, 20 years back, you would
Yeah.
have a very different capabilities that they are providing today, right? Similarly for DAP, because it is probably, the terminology is probably 4 or 5 years old. Initially,
Yeah.
when the DM concept started, people said, oh yeah, this is so amazing. I can create pop-ups, I can create beacons and things like that.
Yeah.
And that is how customers started doing, right? But what eventually happened is they didn't thought about the end users, right? Like people who would actually consume this content. Now imagine yourself. Let's say you would be using some application, and the moment you log in, you see 10 pop-ups coming together, right? As a user, you would not like it, right? You would probably like,
Yeah.
oh, what is this? Like, am I supposed to see all these 10 things, right? But that is how the industry actually started. People thought, okay, now they have this super interesting tool. We can create so many things. And they didn't bother like whether the users really need it or not, right? So that's where it's very important for anyone who is actually new here or have been using DAP for quite some time to be very clear of the objectives for which they are using a tool like this. Okay. This is not a tool for you to create what you think is right. Okay. Rather, it is a tool for you to figure out what are the pain points that your users are figuring in an application and then assist them. A good example for that would be you probably don't need 100 pop-ups in your system, right? Definitely not.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
definitely get one pop-up for a new user who is logging in for the first time. And then you can probably personalize that information that, hey, Arya or hey, Anurag, you have recently joined the organization. These are the 3 things that you need to do. That would be much,
Yeah.
much informative as well as helpful for the user than giving a generic pop-up every time. Have you recently joined the organization? Do these things, right? So
Yeah.
there is a certain So for someone who wants to make the most out of it, I would say don't go directly and start creating content which you believe is the right content. And typically what people do is whatever is there in the support page, just make a Whatfix content out of it, right? That is not
Yeah.
what we want. Because eventually then you would end up with probably 500 flows or 200 pop-ups, which nobody will be, willing to read or maybe was purpose. But rather look at your objectives, figure out why you want to use a tool like this, then at least figure out where your users are actually struggling. Is it in the fourth page of the application? Is it in the fifth page of the application? Or is it like at a particular workflow they are struggling? Figure out those instances and then augment your content to that, right? So that would give you much better ROI than simply thinking, okay, I have created 100 content. What will happen now? Why are people not using it?
Okay. All right. Amazing. It was everything I think listeners needed to hear about user centricity and DAP. And thank you so much for being a part of the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts over here. And it was so good to have you.
Thank you, Arya. Thanks for having this discussion. I really enjoyed it. Have a good day.
Thank
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to this insightful episode. Stay tuned as we bring you fresh perspectives every week on the Digital Adoption Show. We are thrilled to announce that our podcast is now live on multiple platforms, including YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and much more. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes filled with insightful conversations. We greatly appreciate your support and encourage you to leave a review, comment, or a rating to help us continue delivering valuable content.